Hello and welcome to Tech for Non-Techies, the only podcast that demystifies the fast-growing technology sector. I'm your host, Sophia Matveeva, Chicago-based MBA and tech entrepreneur. My aim here is to give you the skills, knowledge and confidence to find opportunities in the tech sector, whether that's through founding a company, getting a dream job, or bringing a fresh perspective to your work. Hello, smart people. How are you today? I am back to London. After living in the French Riviera for the past 8 months, I have returned to London, and the plan was to enjoy the post-pandemic city. The current UK rules say that if you come back from France, you have to quarantine for 10 days. And honestly, I was terrified of this because I was thinking, I'm coming back to the city where there are so many of my friends, and it's literally going to be illegal for me to see them. And so I thought, I am going to just have mad FOMO. But luckily, the weather has been so bad that I've had literally zero FOMO. It has been cold and raining, and I have already forgotten what the sun looks like. So for all of the non-UK residents amongst our listeners, I just want you to know, what you've heard is true. London is an amazing city, but the weather will sometimes make you want to weep bitter tears and potentially hit the bottle, or at least Netflix. But what is great about being in a city like London or New York or Chicago is meeting smart people who do interesting things. And one such person is Dr Itxaso del Palacio, whom you'll hear from today. Itxaso is a leading venture capitalist. She launched Microsoft Ventures in Europe, no big deal, and is now partner at Notion Capital. She also teaches Entrepreneurial Finance at the Technology Entrepreneurship Master's Program at UCL, and that's University College London. In this episode, you will get an overview of the venture capital industry, and you'll also learn what VCs do. Also, you'll see that Itxaso decided to take a course on venture capital whilst already doing the actual job. And this is a pattern that I've seen amongst the successful people that have been on the Tech for Non-Techies show. In general, they make a big effort and a big investment in their learning. And as you will hear, it really pays off. So let's learn all about venture capital from Dr. Itxaso del Palacio.
You're currently a partner at Notion Capital. So what does that mean? What does Notion do and what do you do as a partner?
Yeah, so Notion Capital is a venture capital firm, which means that our mandate is to invest in startups. In our case, Notion is very focused on the startups which are B2B, basically selling to other businesses, and around Series A, meaning usually companies in Series A, they are around, they have built a little bit of this product market fit, they have a little bit of traction, some of them have revenue, some of them have more views, for example, or engagement metrics with the application or whatever they are doing. In my case, as it's B2B, usually they are at around 1 million revenue a year. Usually when they go out to raise the Series A, and we invest across Europe. So that's our mandate. So I don't know if you want me to go a little bit deeper on what.
I would love to go a bit deeper because we have a different range of knowledge across our audience. So some people have already been dealing with the venture capitalists. Other people just don't know that venture capitalists do something interesting and make lots of money, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So just very quickly, the difference between venture capitalists and other type of investors that can be, for example, family offices or angel investors or corporate venture in arms is that venture capitalists invest other people's money. So we go out to the market and we raise a fund for us to invest. And so when we are raising that fund, we convince certain organizations, which are from governments to endowments, university endowments, to pension funds, to family offices, to high net worth individuals. So all of those give us money, and with that we put together a fund from where we invest. When we are raising money from these people, we tell them where are we going to invest, and we need to be very clear on that. So we need to tell them, look, we are going to invest in Series A companies that are at this stage. They are in Europe. They are building companies that are in the B2B space. And basically that. We need to tell them what are we going to do with their money. Mm-hmm. So which means that we cannot move from our mandate. So that is our money. Exactly. I cannot change my mind. I have that money and I raise that money for 10 years. They give me the money and I need to give them a return on that investment that they do in my fund in 10 years. So I have a 10-year mandate with each of the funds. And each of the venture capital firms might have different funds that they raise with different mandates or at different times.
So you could literally, as a partner at Notion, you could be working on one fund within your firm that's maybe investing in later stage, and another fund literally also within your firm that's investing in early stage. Does that happen often? Because it's different, quite different work.
It does, in fact, and it's quite different work. So at the time, we are investing from two different funds at Notion. One of the funds is our regular venture fund, the one I mentioned to you, and then we have an opportunities fund where we can double down on the companies that we invested from that venture fund. So that opportunity fund can invest in the best companies that we have already invested and maybe in one or two other external companies. And when we raised that opportunities fund, we told the investors, we are only going to invest in our portfolio of companies and maybe one or two external that are more opportunistic, that opportunistic investments, which that's why it's called the opportunities fund, right? But we have a different mandate and we have a different return profile on that fund too.
Interesting. So what do you actually do then kind of, day to day? Because I can see that there are different responsibilities, different aspects of audiences to manage. So could you talk about that?
100%. Yes, definitely. I mean, we have the investors who give us the money and we need to be communicating with them, and we have those quarterly reports to them and we need to tell them how are we doing, obviously. So we have that side of it. We obviously need to invest in companies. So we need to be building the relationships with entrepreneurs in the market. And we also need to be in touch with many other investors because those investors are on the one hand side feeders for us of deal flow. On another hand, they co-invest with us. So if there is a very big round, we can tap into the network and say, hey, we are doing this deal. Would you like to co-invest with us? Or we can reach out to them saying, this company in my portfolio is raising money. Do you want to invest? So there are our investors, there are other venture capitalists and angel investors and corporate investors, strategic investors, as well as the entrepreneurs. So it's a big networking type of position.
So currently a lot of Zoom, but hopefully a lot of fun going out when we're back to the world again.
For sure.
You previously worked at Microsoft Ventures. In fact, you launched Microsoft Ventures in Europe. So
correct.
I wonder, do those three responsibilities carry across just venture capital in general, or is that just what you're doing at Notion and specific to Notion?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So Microsoft Ventures was a little bit different than from Notion. The reason is because at Notion we are raising money from other investors. At Microsoft Ventures we were investing from the balance sheet, so we didn't have to go out to raise money to invest. There is a balance sheet and we can go back internally, and the CFO basically is the one who makes an approval, ticks the box at a certain point and gives you the money. That has certain implications for the companies as well as for the investment team, right? So on the positive side, if you are an investor in one of those corporates, as an investment manager or a partner or whoever you are within that team, you don't need to fundraise. And obviously, as an entrepreneur, you know how painful is fundraising. So investors, we go through that too.
I know. I kind of like it because I want you to know the pain we go through.
For sure. So we do the same thing, right? We raise 200, 500 million funds. So that takes a lot of effort too. Well, if you are in a corporate, you don't do that because you invest from the balance sheet.
Don't you sort of have to do it, but just in a different way? You give it a different name, and it's much more about, I don't know, maybe corporate politics, or maybe not politics, but corporate.
Yeah. Definitely there is, for sure. Definitely there is some politics that you need to play, and you need to have some convincing, not only to the CFO, but also to other departments, that what you are doing, basically you are putting 5 million, 10 million into companies, and they are telling you, hey, I just cut my team in 5 people because they told me there was no budget, and now you are putting money. So you need to do a lot of evangelizing internally so that people don't get angry at you. But that's not the same thing as raising money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It is a different story. So basically you don't need to raise the money, and that's probably a positive side. On the negative side, though, I would say that when you are a corporate investor, you are not really on the same side of the table of the entrepreneur, because the entrepreneur is looking for a financial return, and you might be looking for some return, but that is not going to change the balance sheet for Microsoft. Very few investors in corporates have what is called the carried interest, which means the bonus based on success of the companies. There is not such a thing. There might be a little bonus, but not based on the success. If you create a unicorn, you are not going to be more successful than if you invest in a company which creates a lot of revenue for that business. The incentive for the investment managers within corporates and the incentive for the investment managers within venture capital firms are different. And many times in the corporates are not 100% aligned with the founder.
So why? I have so many questions because I didn't realize this. I assumed that it was just a fundraising difference. Okay, so I guess my first question is, why is it like this? Because surely it's obvious that, if somebody could get paid a lot more to do the same thing down the road, they would leave. What's going on?
Exactly. So it's, for example, myself, I am a partner at Notion, and I have a responsibility to give to these investors a return on the investment on 10 years. So I'm committed for 10 years. So you know what I mean?
I see.
In a corporate, you are not committed for 10 years because you don't have a fund. So you can move next year, which means that in many cases, as a founder, you might lose the connection and your, let's say, the sponsor or your lead.
Who cares about you?
Yeah, correct.
Interesting. So what are the returns of corporate VCs versus standard VCs? Because I'm making all sorts of assumptions, but I don't know if they're correct.
Yeah. So obviously VCs look for many more or much higher return on the investment than corporates. For corporates, return on investment might be important in some cases, but in many cases, it's also important to look at how they can work with those companies and collaborate with those companies.
Oh, interesting. So what are they looking for? Is it basically a form of due diligence before acquisition?
In some cases, it might be. In the case of Microsoft, it wasn't. I mean, if Microsoft was feeling that they wanted to acquire a company, they will acquire it up front. They will not wait until we were doing the investment because then we will pay more. for that company. So, but in other corporates, it might be. So depends on the corporate, but in some cases, it might be trying to get in that space, trying to get some integrations, trying to get some feedback from the customers on certain area. For example, I give you an example like blockchain. So Microsoft or I don't know, IBM, they are not going to go and build their own blockchain platforms and technologies. But if they invest in some blockchain companies, that allows them to work with them and go to their customers and try to understand what the customers are looking for while they are working with those companies. It also benefits the startups. Don't get me wrong. For the startups, it's a great go to market because it creates a lot of credibility for them. But at the same time, it helps the corporate to learn what their customers want in the blockchain side. You know what I mean?
Interesting. So it sounds like it's a completely different job. Because
it is a different job. Yes.
Business growth or business development in a way for a corporate versus just, traditional VC investing.
It is a little bit different, but I would say the corporate is super interesting because it's not only the financial side, but it has a lot of strategic, it's almost a huge partnership. It's like very, very key partnerships for the business. So I'll say definitely it's different, but I will then underestimate the corporate side of it. So there is a lot of strategic thinking and financial thinking behind it too. It is super interesting, definitely.
Great. So my next question is about how people get into venture capital, because most people don't get into venture capital straight out of university. The only person who I can think of who did that is Harry Stebbings, who basically went from, for those of you who don't know who Harry Stebbings is, he has a podcast called 20 Minute VC, where he speaks to venture capitalists, and he started doing that when he was at university. And by the time he left university, he knew lots of them, but also in his podcast, he really does adore them.
Yes.
It's a very...
he does a great job.
Yeah. So unless, for people who hadn't started their own media company focused on venture capital, everybody else does a few first jobs usually, and then they get into venture investing.
Yes.
And so why do you think that is?
So I would say there is not a clear path to get into venture capital. And a lot of people ask me, like, what's your advice? And I'm like, I really don't know. I do think that when you are a venture capitalist, you touch into many sectors. You touch into many technologies, different psychologies behind the founders. You sit on boards which have companies that are performing completely differently and need different skills and so on, right? So that gives you an idea that there is a variety of skills that you could apply to it, which means that almost the more diverse your background is, the better.
Interesting.
For venture capital. So usually people who progress in their career in venture capital have done several things before, which are not related to venture capital, and takes them to develop the skills that you need to be a venture capitalist. Obviously, you always need to choose the right companies in the end, but yeah.
So actually, when you said that you have to sit on boards of all these different companies who are performing in very different ways and have founders with very different personalities, I'm thinking that you must have favorites. I mean, that just must happen because we're humans, and there are just some people we want to have a drink with more than with others.
For sure.
And so that must be... But how do you manage first of all, how do you manage the personal relationships? And my second question, kind of follow up to that, is how do you mentally manage working, going from a board meeting in the morning with a company that's doing super well to a board meeting 2 hours later with a company that's really not doing well, and essentially not being really mean to them? Because they're already feeling terrible. They don't need you to tell them. Like, how do you manage your psyche with all of these relationships across these ups and downs?
Ups and downs. So the day of a venture capitalist is very, very diverse, as you said. And many people have like an ideal around the venture capital job and role, but it is not for everyone.
Why is that?
It is really not for everyone. Because venture capital is very transactional. It's very transactional. It's not operational. It's transactional.
Yeah,
as much as we are hands-on with our portfolio companies do whatever they want, and we can advise, but we are not executing. And so it is very transactional in that sense. We might see hundreds of businesses a month, and we might reject hundreds of businesses a month. So we might not invest in any founder. Just to give you an idea, I might see a month 100, 200 new businesses. Last year, I didn't lead any investment.
Wow.
And I might have seen more than 2,000 businesses just by myself. I rejected 2,000 businesses. So it is not easy to be saying no to everyone, to go deep on an analysis and then say no, to build a relationship with a founder and then say no. So saying no to so many people is not easy.
Interesting. Yes. Yes.
So it is transactional. Exactly. It's like, hey, your baby is ugly.
Yeah.
Right. And over again.
Yeah.
And so, and obviously, founders want feedback, and they won't get it. They won't get it. They will think, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
They will think, yeah, she didn't understand it, so I need to explain it to her because she didn't understand. And that's it's a natural reaction of humans, right? They want to come back and explain it to me. But obviously I have 200 other businesses going on this month. You know what I mean? And so I already made my mind. And in many cases I understood it, but I don't feel comfortable with some areas of it. Right? And so, yeah.
So in terms of kind of preparation and making you good at this job, I think there's a big kind of psychological aspect of being at peace with your decisions and being at peace with your decisions also when it turns out that a company that you rejected ended up doing really well, or a company that you invested in has not worked out, kind of the mental equilibrium. I'm assuming that's something you have to focus on. But on a more practical level, I know that you are part of the Kaufman Fellows program. I remember when we met up in London, you told me about it on this beautiful sunny day. We were in Soho House. I still remember it. I still think of glamorous days when we could go to Soho House and sit in the sun.
Exactly.
They will come. You were telling me about Kaufman Fellows, and it sounded very impressive. So I'd love it if you could tell our audience what it is and why you decided to become part of this.
Yeah, for sure. So the Kaufman Fellows program is a program which is like an accelerated education and practical education, applied education for venture capitalists. It's almost like a mini MBA for VCs. All the content.
What kind of topics do you cover?
So you cover everything from how to screen companies, how to run a board meeting, how to build a firm, how to build a relationship with your investors, how to, anything around the venture capital space, right? So there are many things around that. And so the topics are covered by practitioners, and those practitioners are usually very well experienced people. And it is it builds a very strong relationship with the rest of the people in your class. Let's put it this way, because every year they select around 50, 60 people to go through the program. So it's like a mini MBA. And the reality is that everyone within the program are investors.
Mm-hmm.
But most of them are in different countries. They don't target the same companies. So we are not competing with each other.
Mm-hmm. So you already have to be an investor to apply.
You are absolutely right. You already need to be an investor to apply. And so usually your company would sponsor part of the fellowship. Let's put it this way. And they will benefit from having access to the network too, and to some deals and some of the events and some of the knowledge and so on that we get from it. Yeah.
And how has that benefited you? Because it's been a few years now.
Yeah. Oh my God, massively. Massively. So, it changed. I was very, very junior when I got into it, because obviously I got into it in 2012 and I was just second year of my venture career. And so that accelerated the learning and very, very quickly. So the learning went up of the roof very quickly. But I have to say that other people are much more senior. So many more people who were in my class were very much more senior than myself. In fact, that same year they went out and they raised their own funds, and you know what I mean? Yeah. So they were very senior. But still today I get many deals from my fellow classmates, basically, and from the other fellowships. And I invested last year in 3 companies. I'm doing another investment right now. And from these 4 companies, 3 of them, I've done them with fellows.
Wow.
So it is a very, it is a strong network. Let's put it this way. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I nurture it quite a lot. So I'm very much in touch with them. So as every network, right? If you've done an MBA and you keep in touch with your class, then you will get back something from the class. If you don't, then probably you will not hear from them.
Wasn't that so useful? Would you like to participate in our live conversations with experts like Itxaso and ask them your questions and then get feedback on whatever you're working on? In that case, come along and join us as a member. Whether you want to switch career, make a tech product, or just investigate the technology sector and the options available to you, our membership is literally your best friend. Our members get live sessions with experts, coaching sessions with me, and they also get to be part of a unique professional community. Can you see how valuable this is? Bet you can. Check us out on techfonontechies.co/membership, and the link is also in the show notes. On that note, have a fabulous day, rain or shine, but hopefully shine, and I'll speak to you next week. Ciao.